Australia is the smallest continent in the world. However, it is the sixth biggest country in the world after Brazil, the USA, China, Canada, and Russia, and the only country bordered by water. The 6 states and their capital are New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania, Victoria and Western Australia. Australia has 2 territories and their capital, the Australia Capital Territory and Northern Territory. Other external Australian territories include Ashmore and Cartier Islands, Australian Antarctic Territory, Christmas Island, Cocos, Keeling Islands, Coral Sea Islands, Heard and McDonald Islands, and Norfolk Island. Australia is a culturally diverse nation. Aborigines and Torres Strait Islanders, or otherwise known as the First Australians, are the indigenous people the nation before it was colonized by the British. The Torres Strait Islanders refer to people who dwelled on the islands among Australia and Papua New Guinea, Torres Strait. The Aboriginal people are inhabitants of the whole of Australia. They are known to be the first inhabitants of the continent that was said to have journeyed from the Asia to Australia around 50,000 to 60,000 years ago. The cultural symbols that can be associated with the Aboriginal people is the boomerang. This tool has plenty of uses. It can be a hunting or a fighting weapon. Australia is also famous for its wildlife animals such as echidna, dingo, kangaroo, koala, platypus, Tasmanian devil, wallaby, and wombat, which serves as an enticing reason to visit the country. The capital of Australia is Canberra. The widely spoken language is English. Currency is Australian dollar or AUD, and its major religion is Christianity. The official carrier is the Qantas Airways or QF. The major international airports are Adelaide Airport, ADL, Brisbane Airport, BNE, Cairns Airport, CNS, Darwin Airport, DRW, Melbourne Airport, MEL, Perth Airport, PER, and Sydney Airport. Oceania is a region made up of thousands of islands throughout the Central and South Pacific Ocean. It includes Australia, the smallest continent in terms of total land area. Most of Australia and Oceania is under the Pacific, a vast body of water that is larger than all the Earth's continental land masses and islands combined. Oceania is a region made up of thousands of islands throughout the Central and South Pacific Ocean. It includes Australia, the smallest continent in terms of total land area. Most of Australia and Oceania is under the Pacific, a vast body of water that is larger than all the Earth's continental land masses and islands combined. Oceania is dominated by the nation of Australia. The other 2 major land masses of Oceania are the microcontinent of Zealandia, which includes the country of New Zealand, and the eastern half of the island of New Guinea, made up of the nation of Papua New Guinea. Oceania also includes 3 island regions, Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia, including the U.S. state of Hawaii. Oceania can be divided into 3 island groups: continental islands, high islands, and low islands. The islands in each group are formed in different ways and are made up of different materials. Continental islands have a variety of physical features, while high and low islands are fairly uniform in their physical geography. Continental islands were once attached to continents before sea level changes and tectonic activity isolated them. Tectonic activity refers to the movement and collision of different sections, or plates, of the Earth's. Australia, Zealandia, and New Guinea are continental islands. These 3 regions share some physical features. All 3 have mountain ranges or highlands. The Great Dividing Range in Australia, the North Island Volcanic Plateau and Southern Alps in New Zealand, and the New Guinea Highlands in Papua New Guinea. High islands, also called volcanic islands, are created as volcanic eruptions build up land over time. These eruptions begin underwater, when hot magma is cooled and hardened by the ocean. Over time, this activity creates islands with a steep central peak, hence the name high island. Ridges and valleys radiate outward from the peak toward the coastline. The island region of Melanesia contains many high islands because it is a major part of the Ring of Fire, a string of volcanoes around the boundary of the Pacific Ocean. This part of fire is on the boundary of the Pacific Plate and the Australian Plate. Low islands are also called coral islands. They are made of the skeletons and living bodies of small marine animals called corals. Sometimes, coral islands barely reach above sea level, hence the name low island. Low islands often take the shape of an irregular ring of very small islands, called an atoll, surrounding a lagoon. An atoll forms when a coral reef builds up around a volcanic island. Then the volcanic island erodes away, leaving a lagoon. Atolls are defined as one island even though they are made up of multiple communities. The island regions of Micronesia and Polynesia are dominated by low islands. The Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands, for example, is composed of 97 islands and islets that surround one of the largest lagoons in the world. The evolution of flora and fauna across the islands of Australia and Oceania is unique. Many plants and animals reached the islands from southern Asia during the last glacial period, when sea levels were low enough to allow for travel. After sea levels rose, species adapted to the environment of each island or community of islands, producing multiple species that evolved from a common ancestor. Due to its isolation from the rest of the world, Australia and Oceania has an incredibly high number of endemic species, or species that are found nowhere else. The marine environment is an important and influential physical region in Australia and Oceania. The region is composed of three marine realms: temperate Australasia, central Indo-Pacific, and eastern Indo-Pacific. Marine realms are large ocean regions where animal and plant life are similar because of shared environmental and evolutionary factors. The central Indo-Pacific realm includes the seas surrounding the northern half of Australia, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, Fiji, and Tonga. This marine realm has the greatest diversity of tropical coral in the world and includes the world's two largest coral formations, Australia's Great Barrier Reef and the New Caledonia Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef, a UNESCO World Heritage Site off the coast of northeast Australia. The Great Barrier Reef and the New Caledonia Barrier Reef are underwater hotspots for biodiversity. The Great Barrier Reef is home to 30 species of whales, dolphins, and porpoises, 6 species of sea turtles, 215 species of birds, and more than 1,500 species of fish. The New Caledonia Barrier Reef is home to 600 species of sponges, 5,500 species of mollusks, 5,000 species of crustaceans, and at least 1,000 species of fish. The eastern Indo-Pacific realm surrounds the tropical islands of the central Pacific Ocean, extending from the Marshall Islands through central and southeastern Polynesia. Like the central Indo-Pacific realm, this realm is also known for its tropical coral formations. A variety of whale, tortoise, and fish species also inhabit this realm. The Great Barrier Reef and the New Caledonia Barrier Reef are underwater hotspots for biodiversity. The Great Barrier Reef is home to 30 species of whales, dolphins, and porpoises, 6 species of sea turtles, 215 species of birds, and more than 1,500 species of fish. New Caledonia Barrier Reef is home to 600 species of sponges, 5,500 species of mollusks, 5,000 species of crustaceans, and at least 1,000 species of fish. The eastern Indo-Pacific realm surrounds the trends of the central Pacific Ocean, extending from the Marshall Islands through central and southeastern Polynesia. Like the central Indo-Pacific realm, this realm is also known for its tropical coral formations. A variety of whale, tortoise, and fish species also inhabit this realm. Indigenous cultures shaped, and were shaped by, the geography of Australia and Oceania. Polynesian culture, for example, developed as Southeast Asian sailors explored the South Pacific. This seafaring culture developed almost entirely from its geography. Indigenous cultures of Australia and Oceania also changed the environments in which they lived. As they explored the South Pacific, Polynesians brought agriculture to isolated islands, for example. The environment also affected traditional beliefs and cultural practices of the indigenous communities in Australia. Although there are hundreds of indigenous groups native to Australia, these groups use the unified name Aboriginal Australians, or Aborigines. Aboriginal Australian cultures often had strong spiritual relationships with the local environment. They developed myths to explain the landscape. Modern scientific research has proven that many of these myths are fairly accurate historic records. The Pacific Islands are a group of islands located in the Pacific Ocean. It is divided into three subregions: Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. Melanesia, Black Islands, is a group of islands located in the southwestern portion of the Pacific extending to the Arafura Sea. The people of Melanesia, or Melanesians, have distinguished dark skin and frizzy hair. Their languages are Papuan and Austronesian. Micronesia, Small Islands, lies in the western Pacific Ocean. It consists of 607 small islands. It has a diverse culture that can be observed in various traditions and customs of its people. Polynesia, Many Islands, is a triangular-shaped group of islands in the east-central region of Oceania. There are a number of languages spoken in the region, and people came from various cultural backgrounds. Melanesia is a region in the western Pacific Ocean to the east and south of New Guinea Island. Its northern boundary is the equator. The area includes the island of New Guinea, the Bismarck Archipelago, 4 independent countries, Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, Fiji, and Papua New Guinea, and the French dependency of New Caledonia. Micronesia is situated in the western part of Pacific Ocean. The islands of this region include the Federated States of Micronesia, FSM, Palau, the Marshall Islands, Mariana Islands, and the western portion of the Kiribati Archipelago. Polynesia comprises the Cook Islands, Hawaii, French Polynesia, New Zealand, the Marquesas Islands, and Samoa. Mancini identified the following islands as the most sought-after tourist destinations: the Tahitian Islands, Tonga, American Samoa, and the Cook Islands. Flags, countries, capital, languages, and Australia's people. Take a look at the New Zealand. New Zealand, Maori Aotearoa, island country in the South Pacific Ocean, the southwesternmost part of Polynesia. The capital city is Wellington and the largest urban area Auckland. Both are located on the North Island. New Zealand administers the South Pacific Island group of Tokelau and claims a section of the Antarctic continent. The New Zealand flag is the symbol of the realm, government and people of New Zealand. Its royal blue background is derived from the ensign of the Blue Squadron of the Royal Navy. The stars of the Southern Cross emphasize this country's location in the South Pacific Ocean. The Union Jack in the first quarter recognizes New Zealand's historical origins as a British colony and dominion. With a patchwork history of Maori, European, Pacific Island and Asian, New Zealand's population of 5 million people is a melting pot of cultures. Today, the population of New Zealand, opens a new window, is made up of people from a range of backgrounds. 70% are of European descent, 16.5% are indigenous Maori, 15.1% Asian, and 8.1% non-Maori Pacific Islanders. The continent of Antarctica makes up most of the Antarctic region. The Antarctic is a cold, remote area in the southern hemisphere encompassed by the Antarctic Convergence. The Antarctic Convergence is an uneven line of latitude where cold, northward-flowing Antarctic waters meet the warmer waters of the world's oceans. The Antarctic covers approximately 20% of the southern hemisphere. Antarctica is the fifth largest continent in terms of total area. It is larger than both Oceania and Europe. Antarctica is a unique continent, does not have a native population. There are no countries in Antarctica, although 7 nations claim different parts of it: New Zealand, Australia, France, Norway, the United Kingdom, Chile, and Argentina. The continent of Antarctica makes up most of the Antarctic region. The Antarctic is a cold, remote area in the southern hemisphere encompassed by the Antarctic Convergence. The Antarctic Convergence is an uneven line of latitude where cold, northward-flowing Antarctic waters meet the warmer waters of the world's oceans. The Antarctic covers approximately 20% of the southern hemisphere. Antarctica is the fifth largest continent in terms of total area. It is larger than both Oceania and Europe. Antarctica is a unique continent, does not have a native population. There are no countries in Antarctica, although 7 nations claim different parts of it: New Zealand, Australia, France, Norway, the United Kingdom, Chile, and Argentina. Antarctica means no bears are all mythical. It is true that there are no bears in Antarctica, but the name comes from a Roman version of the Greek word that is Antarctique. Anti- is commonly a synonym for the opposite in English as well as in Greek. Thus, Antarctica means opposite of Arctic land, anti- plus the Arctic, which forms a compound word. Before Antarctica officially acquired its name, the phrase was used to describe places that contrasted. The Antarctic ice sheet dominates the region. It is the largest single piece of ice on Earth. This ice sheet even extends beyond the continent when snow and ice are at their most extreme. The oceans surrounding Antarctica provide an important physical component of the Antarctic region. The waters surrounding Antarctica are relatively deep, reaching 4,000 to 5,000 meters, 13,123 to 16,404 feet, in depth. The Antarctic region has an important role in global processes. It is an integral part of the Earth's heat balance. The heat balance, also called the energy balance, is the relationship between the amount of solar heat absorbed by Earth's atmosphere and the amount of heat reflected back into space. Antarctica has a larger role than most continents in maintaining Earth's heat balance. Ice is more reflective than land or water. The highest peak in Antarctica is Vinson Massif, towering at 4,892 meters. Mount Erebus is an active volcano that erupts ice crystals. Among the continents of the world, Antarctica remains to be uninhabited. While the Antarctic does not have permanent residents, the region is a busy outpost for a variety of research scientists. These scientists work at government-supported research stations and come from dozens of different countries. The number of scientists conducting research varies throughout the year, from about 1,000 in winter to around 5,000 in summer. Researchers from a variety of scientific backgrounds study the Antarctic not only as a unique environment, but also as an indicator of broader global processes. Geographic of the world's coldest and most isolated continent.